Okay, so this video is to help adjust your expectations for recovery. I think that there's two camps out there. When you go into a 12-step program, it's kind of your rock bottom and you crawl through the door and you're willing to say and do anything. And it's going to be hard and you're going to struggle and you're going to have cravings and you're going to have to go deep and figure out what the problems are that caused you to drink and probably make amends to people and make lists of all your personality and character defects. And then you have the other camp where you quit drinking and it's rainbows and unicorns on day one because not drinking is just awesome and easy and fun and everybody should do it. And the answer is neither and both. Um, you know, I want to preface all of the things I'm going to tell you about adjusting your expectations with this basic truth. Anything that you have to deal with or go through is easier and better than the hell you just came out of. Alcohol addiction is suffering and it's isolating and you're in a downward spiral. It's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. So all the effort that you're putting in every day just to maintain, you're still on a downward slope. So just know that. I have gone through a lot. Easy sobriety was not a cakewalk for me. But to be honest, I had quit drinking several times before, but not quit drinking. I was just taking a break for a week, kind of proving to myself that I didn't have a problem, or knowing I did, and I didn't believe I needed to quit drinking. I never even entertained that thought, but just deciding to kind of dry myself out. Not feeling well, feeling too hungover, and finding the willpower to give it a week or two. And when I went through those weeks multiple times, I would never have told you I was going through a detox because I was in denial that I was dealing with an addiction. So anything that I did experience was not put into that context, but it also speaks to the fact that the symptoms were mild. I was functioning, and probably I have good memories of those times where I was able to take a week off. And I remember thinking I felt so good, and I wish that I could continue this. But I never really thought I'm going to continue it forever until the day I did. So frame my symptoms in a way that I managed to ignore them and not think that I had anything to deal with. So as you look at your own symptoms of recovery, they'll probably be a little more intense because you're ready to deal with them and you're ready to look beneath the symptoms and to make whatever corrections you have to make. So, but that's why they're intense. They're going to be intense because you're paying attention to them. In the early or the 10-day withdrawal and early sobriety survival guide, you can see that there's occasionally some pretty severe symptoms with really, I'm not even going to say it's always just with people who had, they were drinking a pint of or a fifth of vodka every day. I don't know what causes some people to have dangerous withdrawal symptoms and others don't. Anything's possible. I will say that, I was very private when I quit. I didn't even tell my husband or my family that that's what I was doing. And there were a few times where I thought, I might be having like a neurological event. Like my brain just does not feel well. And so, what I want to encourage you, and I mentioned this in the survival guide, is that if at any time you think that you need to seek professional help, just do. I remember thinking I'd rather die than admit that I was addicted to alcohol. I wasn't even ready to deal with that. But later and in hindsight, I realized there's probably things worse than death, like, a disabling stroke or something like that. So just be aware of your symptoms and follow the 10-day survival guide. And then understand, so I'll start framing recovery with this image. Recovery as well as addiction are spirals. So if you look in the center of this, it kind of shows where the upward spiral starts and the downward. And we'll look at the downward first. When you're in addiction, in a spiral, drinking is a priority and it becomes more and more of a priority versus other things. You start to neglect yourself. Maybe you're just not sleeping well. Obviously, you're pouring a shit ton of alcohol into your system every day, and it doesn't feel good, and you're waking up bad, but you're neglecting your own needs. Maybe you're not exercising as much or as often or as, what do I say, intense as you want to be. And neglecting others. It may just be that you're not showing up for conversations. It may be simple as that. You're just kind of checking out and you're not really listening and you're not really paying attention. It may be worse than that. You may actually be physically letting people down or breaking commitments. And then over time, bad habits become normalized. So, not getting enough sleep, drinking too much, not eating well, not taking care of yourself, not, doing what you need to for others in your life. That becomes normalized more and more instead of the exception, oh, I had a big party weekend and so now my Monday's a little slow. Now, kind of every day is a little slow. And over that time, you start to get more and more self absorbed. And what this looks like in terms of poor mental health is you start to think that all of your problems are caused by other people. So it's everybody else's bullshit that's really dragging you down. It's not the alcohol. It's, the nagging of a spouse. It's the chaos of having children. It's the stress or the bullshit policies at work. It's the traffic. It's, the high prices of this or that. I mean, it's whatever. You're just real self-absorbed and you see everything as though it's happening to you and you're taking everything personally. And then this leads to relationships becoming dysfunctional. There's a lot of codependencies. There's a lack of boundaries. You're putting up with things that you shouldn't put up with in exchange for other people putting up with your drinking. And then as you continue, you start becoming isolated and you just are lacking in interest and connection. At some point, everything was an eye roll to me. Now, I might have a smile on my face, but I was faking it. I didn't care. When I had conversations, even when I was drinking and thought I was enjoying myself, I wasn't real interested in other people or what they were doing. It was just when we were drinking together, it was a reason to drink. I didn't really care all that much about their problems. And I was just the self absorption leads to isolation. And then over time, for me, I know because I was drinking, I didn't want to drink in front of other people. So I might stop in somewhere, but then quickly I'm leaving to go home because I am late for my own personal happy hour. Or it's not really happy, but whatever. I thought it was. And then finally, as all of these things kind of snowball, the desire and ability to function just deteriorates. I noticed that my window of normal, high functioning, positive day was really shrinking. It took me longer and longer every day to feel good. So even if I was going to my hot yoga or going on a run, I wasn't putting in as much effort. I wasn't talking to people when I was there. And then just my days were getting harder and harder. I was still functioning, but it was taking a lot more effort and I didn't have a lot of joy while I was doing it. And that's the downward spiral of addiction. And all of that effort and pain and suffering, it's not getting you anything. In fact, it's taking you farther down the hole. So, addiction is progressive. You get worse over time. You need more and more alcohol to feel, quote, normal. And it takes more and more effort to be able to drink that much and still function. So you're putting in a lot of effort and ultimately you're sliding down. Recovery is an uphill spiral. So in the beginning, it may be difficult to not drink, and that's your first priority. How do you get through the evenings, especially without drinking. And that is what the 10-day survival guide is designed to do. There's a lot of suggestions and ideas, um, but some people are able to just flip the switch and move right on. And for other people, there's cravings and, temptation. And so the first level of recovery is just learning how to not drink. And this process isn't linear. So in addition to that, and the way to support that is through self-care and reflection. So, you need to make room and space to heal. And you may need to sleep more. You may need to cut down on your social obligations. You may need to take some time off work or reduce some of your responsibilities. You may need to find some childcare. You have to make room for this. And that's why it's so important to complete the recovery capital exercise so that you can really account for the time, energy, and money that drinking was costing you, and know that in the beginning, it's worth all of the investment because you were already making that investment in a downhill process. And over time, this is just going to get easier and easier and with more and better outcomes. So, as your healthy habits form, your mental bandwidth begins to improve. So, you're not doing so much navel gazing anymore. You're able to focus on goals and plug in with work and with relationships and people, and notice that the grass is green and the birds are singing. And you just begin to be able to handle a lot more. And as that happens, your relationships start to heal. You start to realize that the problem isn't the other person so much as it's your inability to communicate or your inability to set a good boundary. And so those things will start to correct relationships. And as you expand outward, you'll start to notice a genuine interest. When you're drinking and dynorphin is really high, remember that's the I don't give a shit neurotransmitter, you kind of just are faking interest. And as the brain chemistry recalibrates, you'll notice that you are interested in what's going on around you, and you're taking pleasure in those little things that, used to kind of just be a pain in the ass. Now you're back to living in a present moment and just enjoying what's going on. And then as you get more and more time, eventually you'll just be thriving. You'll feel confident and motivated and capable and content, satisfied with what you're doing and who you are and what you're up to, because you know that you are living your best life and you're capable of dealing with problems and you're capable of change. And all of that just kind of snowballs in an upward and outward expansion. Early sobriety for me has a lot of positive memories. I kind of created a cocoon for myself. I did feel better immediately, but I wasn't peppy and motivated. I was tired. I felt like I was recovering. I felt numb. I felt like I'd been in a bad car accident and everybody walked away, but it was just really traumatic. I was just stilted and out of sorts. And some of that's physical and some of that's mental, but I definitely encourage you to allow yourself the space to just kind of make sense of what's going on and to figure out how to operate inside your body as the alcohol's leaving and you're detoxing. And the survival guide has lots of ideas for not just how to fill the time when you're not drinking and what do you do instead, but also how to nourish your body and your brain with podcasts and books and just reflecting in a journal, just doing all those things and taking space. So I really encourage you in early sobriety to give yourself room to make sense of what's happened and what you want to have happen next. That's very important to do this right. And it doesn't hurt. It's not bad. It's just something that you have to pay attention to. The more you invest in early sobriety and recovery, the more you're going to get out of it. A couple other things that you need to know. First of all, you're going to experience a dopamine deficiency for a while. Remember that alcohol triggers 2 to 10 times the amount of dopamine of normal and everyday activities. And in that process, your brain stops producing dopamine and responding normally, which is why the longer we drink, the more apathetic we become and the less interested we are in people, because we look at our child and they smile and our brain doesn't light up like it should, so we're not as engaged. And that dopamine deficiency, it it's a thing. It's not real fun. It's not real negative, but it can feel like a little bit of depression because you feel like you should be feeling better than you are. Knowing that this is a brain chemistry thing that will gradually improve over time is really, really helpful because it allows you to adjust your expectations. What can you expect? Unfortunately, there are so many complicating factors that it's impossible to give you a timeline. Every recovery is very, very unique. However, the good news is there's a lot of complicating factors, which means there are things that you can do to naturally stimulate more production. Things like getting enough sleep, exercise, getting out into the sunshine, getting out in nature, listening to music, writing a gratitude list, looking for positive things just naturally feeds your brain positive things. And it can feel, as drinkers, we were kind of all or nothing people. So no, going for a walk in the sunshine isn't going to take you from bottom of the barrel to rock star status, but everything that you can do every day does make a difference. And gradually over time, your bottoms get higher and your lows are kind of evening out. And then there's also things you can do with nutrition and specifically supplements. And I have information in the supplement handout that you can read that talk about amino acids. Dopamine deficiency is there's a lack of amino acids, and you can get that from diet. Eating clean is really important. Avoiding sugar is really important. And this is something that, the first day when I made that phone call to AA, because I wanted the accountability and I was kind of desperate enough to try anything. And I was put in touch with a temporary sponsor who was so kind and sweet. I mean, she spent several hours on the phone with me over several days and really gave me a lot of good advice. She also gave me some advice that, had I taken it, if I didn't know better, might have really set me up for failure. It's kind of common. I've heard it a lot, not just from the temporary sponsor, that sugar is a good way to get through the cravings, whether the cravings are for alcohol or, as I experienced the cravings, I felt like they were sugar cravings. I don't eat a lot of sugar in my diet, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, I bet my kids have candy in the trash can upstairs or they're hiding it. And I had this powerful overwhelming for sugar that I didn't normally have. And I didn't expect because, again, I don't include a lot of sugar in my diet. And so when I was experiencing cravings in the evening, I basically just wanted to eat. If it wasn't nailed down, I was going to eat it. While I had been feeling really out of control and having a lack of willpower around drinking, I was very controlled with my diet. And so that felt really scary to me. I didn't really know how to handle that. And had I listened to my sponsor, temporary sponsor, and gone and gotten the candy, that actually really works against you because it doesn't encourage natural dopamine production. So if you can understand that when you're dealing with a craving, you're not actually craving the food or craving alcohol, you're craving dopamine. And so if you can learn how to be uncomfortable, because I guarantee you, and then when those strong sugar cravings come on, writing in your gratitude journal, not the same thing. But over time, that does improve things. However, in the moment, it's very difficult because you do have to make a choice to be uncomfortable. The other thing that you can do, I know for me, I was willing to just kind of eat anything. I don't keep a lot of sweets and junk food in the house. So I would just eat double and triple portions of dinner. I mean, I'm telling you, it was the truth. And I always just told myself, well, nobody goes to fat camp because they ate too many beans and broccoli. And indeed, over 6 months of dealing with the cravings, I probably gained about 5 pounds. My clothes still fit, it was fine. I later learned that there are supplements that can directly impact the dopamine deficiency, also serotonin, also the stress hormone levels. So definitely read the supplement information if you're interested in that. I did keep it as simple as possible, and they even included a list at the very end of, just start here. Make sure you have a multivitamin. Make sure you're taking vitamin D. I think there's one other recommendation, and then I give you the information and links to purchase some supplements if you want to try those. And the results out there are amazing. And I know I didn't get the benefit of them in early sobriety, but I use them now. And I'm not going to go into depth here, but they really work. It's kind of magical. So again, though, it's not a magic pill. We're not dealing with drugs. So keeping our expectations that, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you're at a, just dumpy, if you just feel like an 8 bad, and the things that you do move you to 6 and to 5 and to 4, you're not back at 0, but you've made an improvement. And then perhaps your bandwidth expands a little bit because you're a little bit able to handle more. And then that just perpetuates in the upward cycle. If you can move from an 8 out of 10 down to a 6, you can do a little bit more positive things that then move you down to a 5 and do a little bit more. And then you're down to a 4. And it's just a process as you feel better. I want to circle back though to the sugar thing, and also include caffeine, because you're going to read about it and you might hate me if you're a huge coffee drinker. And I'm not telling you that you can't have sugar and that you have to avoid caffeine. It's similar to when we're in active addiction. When the pain of continuing as you are is worse than the pain of change, then that's when you get motivated. And I know for me, I love my coffee, but at some point, if I realize that if I trade in my coffee, I can feel way better, then then it's just not worth it. Sugar and caffeine and really any substance that you could get addicted to, they stimulate dopamine production, and it's an external source, so it's not a natural production. So it's not the same as going for a walk or exercising where your body's making it. It's being triggered because of something you're ingesting, and that becomes a cycle. Just like when you eat sugar, what goes up has to come down. Same thing with caffeine. It gives you energy and it gives you focus, and then you feel lethargic when you're in withdrawals. And if you don't have it on a certain day, you feel withdrawals. So if you can eliminate those substances, it might be a couple of days or not even really to get through caffeine withdrawals. I mean, as long as you're in this, you might as well go all the way. And it can really make a difference. And it can also not make a difference for you. So you can give it up and then reassess and then reintroduce. And if you find that, yeah, no, that wasn't worth giving it up, then don't. It's very individual. Know that there will be days where you are literally doing everything right and you still don't feel amazing, and it will pass. That's just the way it is. And part of recovery, there's the physical aspect, but the mental aspect of that is the instant gratification that we're so used to. If something isn't working right, then we'll just have a drink and get through that. And learning how to be uncomfortable is uncomfortable, but it does pass. So you're not doing anything wrong, and it's okay to do the best that you can. And it's okay on days where you're like, you know what, I'm going to have a piece of chocolate cake and I don't even care. Okay. Okay. You do the best that you can and just congratulate yourself for all the effort that you are putting in and all the things you're doing right. And just know that focusing on what you're doing right is actually a dopamine stimulator. So, don't kick yourself over. If you're going to eat the chocolate cake, don't kick yourself for eating the chocolate cake. Just eat it. Focus on all the other good things you're doing. Focus on how wonderful it feels and tastes, whatever. Don't kick yourself. That just kind of doubles down on the negative effects. Other things to be aware of in early recovery: you are likely going to be more tired than normal and need to sleep more, and that'll just happen naturally. But uh, I'm bringing that up because you need to make room for it. So don't try to get through the day with caffeine. If you need to take a nap, take a nap. If you need to, adjust your hours or adjust your responsibilities in some way, do that. Make sleep a priority, because that is when your brain heals. That is when all of the work and the effort that you're doing subconsciously gets processed in the brain. So sleep is, the more you can sleep, the better your recovery is going to go. And I think that there's a break even over the top point. If you're sleeping 10 to 12 hours a day, some days I did, and I'm not going to say that I shouldn't have. I slept when I was tired. So just do the best you can, but do make sleep a priority. You're not going to want to try to go through early sobriety running on 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep. Your bandwidth will contract, not expand. Another thing that I talk about in the survival guide is establishing a morning routine. And as we go through this course, I have so many activities and rituals and habits that I'm going to suggest. But the first thing I'm going to suggest is just to make space for some sort of routine. So attaching it to a habit that you already do, like you get up, you're going to go to the bathroom, that you're going to take out the dog, that you're going to take a shower. If you can find something that you already do on a consistent basis and then attach a 5-minute habit to that, studies and science show that that's actually a much better way to build a habit. So instead of thinking, oh, well, I'm going to try to meditate 1 hour every single day and then follow that with vigorous exercise for another 60 minutes. Well, unless that sounds super fun to you and you have time to do it, that's not setting yourself up for success. So I recommend creating space for yourself in a 5-minute interval and attach it to another habit. And for now, it might just be sitting and breathing and starting your day from a place of being centered and calm. And you will find that makes such a huge difference than getting up late, pushing the snooze button, not giving yourself enough time to get ready, and just you go into the day with a completely different bandwidth, a different mindset. You're behind the ball instead of calm and prepared. And literally 5 minutes can make the difference between feeling, a 6 or a 7 on an anxiety and a 3 to a 4 on anxiety. Again, 5 minutes in the morning doesn't solve everything, but it really, really does set the foundation for just walking through life and differently and showing up in a better state of mind. So, in conclusion, early sobriety is a time of healing and recovery. And if you make space for that, it's just going to go a lot smoother than if you're resistant to it and thinking that this isn't the way it should be. I remember when I was having babies and I'd be complaining that I still had 5 pounds to lose, 6 months postpartum. And people would be like, well, it took you 9 months to get that way, and it's going to take you 9 months to fix it. You don't get pregnant overnight and you don't lose the weight overnight. And that for sure does not apply to sobriety. I drank for 30 years and it took me, I would say by a year, I was better than I could have possibly imagined. But the thing is, I'm still finding new levels of better. So does that mean I'm not all the way recovered? Does that mean that I still have more to do? I don't know. I just know life just keeps getting better. And I would have taken sobriety over alcohol use disorder from day one. I would have traded it. I did trade it just for that. And 1 week felt better than, day one, and 1 month felt better than week one, and 3 months and 6 months. And life goes on. It's not like I was in hospital or anything like that. I just noticed that over time, my spiral was expanding, and yours will too. And it can take time. The more you can do, the faster it will go in terms of diet and exercise and sleep and nutrition and music and gratitude and rituals and mindset work. All of that stuff helps expedite it, but it doesn't make it go overnight. So just trust that you'll get there and try to enjoy the process. I look back on my times where I was feeling kind of low, and I chose to watch a good recovery movie, which I list like 20 of them in the survival guide. And I just spent time with myself, and I hadn't been doing that. So I don't have bad memories of my first year. It was hard. Yeah, and it was worth it. And it's worth it. So if you have any questions, reach out. And below this video is your survival guide as well as your recovery capital. Get those done, and then you can mark your this module complete. I'll see you on the next one.